Friends, welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward. Today on the podcast, you have a superpower and we're going to talk about what it is. Why do we care? Well, in the group coaching over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about identifying superpowers and why this is important. And so I thought I would like to bring this conversation to you guys and invite you to have this thought experiment with yourself. The group found it really helpful when it came to understanding your superpowers, and it became really motivating and encouraging. So, what is a superpower? It is not like a laser that shoots from your hands or the fact that you can levitate things or that kind of stuff. No. So, chill. It's not about that kind of thing. It's about the idea of what is the thing that you excel at and that really makes other people feel your presence, and you feel an elevated sense of knowing. That's the word for it. You just know that this is something that you can do. A superpower is that thing that without realizing, or that something that you did intentionally, it's an unwavering knowing that this is something that is in your arsenal of things to be able to execute. In the previous episode, we spoke about independent thinking. One of my superpowers is independent thinking that's led me to be able to anticipate things that are coming. So for me, I'm able to assess, and one of my superpowers is that I can see straight through bullshit and I can dissect the way that I think something's going to eventually turn out. Now, it's not some sort of like reading the future or anything like that. No, I can interpret information in a sense that tells me whether it's based on fact, how plausible it is to eventuate a certain way, and how I think the people involved will react to this and contribute to the outcome of this situation. That's just a superpower. That's the superpower I've developed over my 45 years. So that's what a superpower is. And every single person has one. Some people, a lot of people have many. And superpowers are things you can cultivate. You can use your inherent abilities. Some people have a real tendency towards empathy. So you can use empathy as the basis to cultivate your superpowers. And why should you know what your superpower is? Firstly, it builds confidence. So if you know that your superpower is building community, and you own a cafe, or you manage a cafe, or you work in a cafe, you know that you bring a superpower to the table that's going to be incredibly valuable to a future employer or to a business that you want to own. On the other end of the spectrum, if your superpower is analytics and you're a loner and you don't like to be around other people, but you love coffee and you want to be in the coffee industry, owning a cafe isn't going to be the best use of your superpower. Roasting coffee may be the perfect job for you. Building relationships in your roasted coffee business won't be the thing that you need to do, and that's where you'll need to go and find people and employ people to do that for you if you want to have a business. Maybe you shouldn't have a business because building businesses is all about building relationships. So understanding that your superpower is analytics and dissecting things on your own, not in a team, can help you understand which direction you should be pushing your career or your business development if you want to be a business owner. So it builds confidence in your decision making. The other thing that is advantageous and a good reason to understand what your superpowers are is because it elevates your other traits. So, for example, once you know what your superpower is and it has built confidence in you, it allows you the opportunity to cultivate superpowers based on your other traits. So, all right, I'm going to step into my vulnerability here. Because I'm an independent thinker, I was able to build on that superpower and have confidence enough to examine what some of the other things that I wasn't very good at. One of my learnings over the last couple of years is how to use my over empathy, because it has been debilitating for me. Because I blindly believed what other people were, the energy that other people were putting out to me. So, they could manipulate me emotionally. And so while I was good on the thinking side of things, I was getting railroaded on the emotional side of things. And so I would believe I'd believe sob stories and I'd believe all of this kind of shit. So when I knew that my thinking superpower was there, I had confidence enough to question my other traits. So my over empathy was something that I gained confidence in after I knew what my one superpower was. I could approach my over empathy, which was a weakness for me or an exposure for me, and I have been able to cultivate an understanding of my over empathy so that I can now build boundaries around that and get better at understanding, hold on, this is how I got this way. This is how it's hurt me. This is how it's helped me. How can I use this and cultivate this to become a superpower for me in time? And so it elevates your other traits once you understand what your current superpower is. And again, friends, we all have them. And in a time of 2020, with all of the insane, irrational shit that's going on, figuring out what your superpower is immensely helpful, because it gives you a compass and how you move forward in navigating the rest of 2020. The next thing is that you put it to use. But before we put it to use, hold on. How do you figure out what your superpower is? So I got everyone in one of the groups, in the group coaching, because typically people don't want to admit what their superpowers are. So I got everybody in the group to ask the people closest to them and people who are not closest to them to tell them what their superpower was. And not a single person came back and said, I don't have one. Everybody, when they asked somebody else, the other person came back and told them what their superpower was. And when I challenged them and said, hey, do you think that that's correct? They went, yeah, actually, I do. So I would encourage you, go and ask people around you. Tell them, hey, this crazy woman on the Map It Forward podcast, the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, said, I got to figure out what my superpower is. Blame me. And just say to them, what do you think my superpower is? And this is a fun, intellectual conversation that creates connections, that everybody walks away from feeling great. So having those kinds of conversations with people will help you become more attuned to what your superpowers are. And then when you know what they are, that's when you start using them deliberately. That's when you say, all right, so I know that I am someone who can get shit done. So a lot of the people that I've met through a lot of the consulting work that I've done are people who execute very well. So they have what's called a high executive function. And that means that they can have an idea and they can make it happen, or they can be told about an idea and make it happen. So they can execute very well. But what they aren't aware of is, a lot of them, is this idea, well, how do I stretch beyond getting things done? How do I grow beyond that so that I'm building and growing and growing and growing based on my own vision, my own imagination? And so they take that initial root, superpower, and they grow that to, once they have confidence and they know that, hey, I can actually get shit done. In a sea of people who have lots of ideas and do nothing, I'm a doer. And because I know I've got grit and I can get things done, now what I want to figure out is, how do I assess ideas so that I can grow what I've got beyond the initial seed idea? And how do I figure out, is that a good idea or is that something that will tank? All of these things are superpowers. And in a time when you gotta shake shit up, having superpowers that you use and yield to your will can be the difference in how you experience 2020 and beyond. Because remember, friends, our industry has changed for good. Our industry has changed for good. And it's not going back to what it was. And we have to see this as an opportunity, because seeing it as anything but that is going to bog you down in a ton of misery. So let's look at identifying what each of our individual superpowers are and using that to jump beyond the challenges that are being presented to us right now as an industry, and make this a better industry that doesn't suffer from the same ailings as what happened before 2020. I wish you a fun journey into understanding what your superpower is. It can be really encouraging and motivating and exciting to go on that thought experiment with yourself. Peace, love, and peanut butter, friends. Have an amazing rest of your day.